All right, let's talk about something that feels like it's straight out of a spy thriller. We're diving into those moments where the craziest conspiracy theories turn out to be declassified fact.
You hear these unbelievable stories, and you just brush them off, right? But what if I told you that for some of the wildest ones, the proof, well, it comes straight from the US government's own declassified files?
And just so we're clear, this isn't guesswork or some late-night internet rabbit hole. Everything we're about to go through is backed up by official reports, public admissions, actual declassified documents. We're talking about things that people used to call fantasy, but are now confirmed history.
Okay, so where do we start? Let's go back to the Cold War. You've got this intense paranoia hanging in the air, right? The whole world is on edge, and the biggest battles weren't being fought on traditional battlefields. They were happening in the shadows.
First on our list is something called Operation Gladio. So, the idea on paper was pretty straightforward. The US helped set up these secret armies all over Western Europe. They were called stay-behind armies, and their whole job was supposed to be, if the Soviets invade, these guys will pop up and start a guerrilla war.
But here's where it gets really dark. There's the official story, and then there's the reality that came out later. Yeah, it was supposedly about fighting the Soviets, but what was it actually used for? We're talking false flag operations, political assassinations, and basically waging psychological warfare to crush any left-wing political groups that were gaining power in places like Italy and Belgium. A huge difference, right?
Okay, let's hop over to South America for our next one, Operation Condor. This was basically a state-sponsored hit squad network. You had these right-wing dictatorships in places like Chile and Argentina, and with U.S. backing, they worked together to hunt down, kidnap, and even kill their political opponents no matter where they fled. They were literally crossing borders to do this.
And the human cost, it's just staggering. The estimate is around 60,000 people killed. And these weren't soldiers. We're talking about students, teachers, union leaders, priests, anyone who is considered a dissident. That number, 60,000, it really brings home just how brutal and real this whole thing was.
All right, get ready for this one because it's a real doozy, the Iran-Contra affair. It's so convoluted it sounds made up. So here's the deal in a nutshell. The Reagan administration secretly starts selling weapons to Iran, a country they publicly called an enemy and had an arms embargo against. Why? To get American hostages released. But wait, it gets crazier. They then took the money they made from selling those weapons and secretly, illegally, funnel it to fund the Contra rebels in Nicaragua. Congress had explicitly told them, no, you can't do that. They did it anyway.
And if you want to see just how big these secret wars could get, look at this. This is Operation Cyclone. This was the CIA's project to arm and train the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to fight the Soviets. Just look at the money here. It starts at less than $1 million in '79. A year later, $30 million. By 1987, we're talking $630 million. That is an insane jump. It became one of the most expensive secret wars the CIA ever ran.
Okay, so everything we've talked about so far happened overseas. But what happens when that kind of power, those kinds of secret tactics, get turned inward? When the target becomes the American people themselves? This is where the story gets even more disturbing.
Have you ever wondered if the news you read is being influenced? Well, that's the core of Operation Mockingbird. This was an alleged CIA program with a truly chilling goal: recruit powerful journalists to secretly plant CIA-approved stories in the media. The whole point was to control the narrative, to shape what you and I think about world events.
Now, the CIA has never officially fessed up to the whole thing, but in 1977, the legendary reporter Carl Bernstein, from Watergate, he published a huge expose in Rolling Stone, and he put a number on it. He claimed that over 400 U.S. journalists had worked secretly for the CIA. 400! I mean, that just makes you question everything about the independence of the press, doesn't it?
And it wasn't just the CIA playing these games. Oh no. The FBI had their own thing going on. It was called COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program. And it was exactly what it sounds like: a secret, often illegal war against anyone in America who dared to speak out or dissent.
Just look at this list of who they targeted. It is absolutely wild. Of course, you've got anti-Vietnam War protesters and the Black Panther Party. But they also went after Martin Luther King Jr. and feminist groups. And then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, the Ku Klux Klan. It didn't matter who you were. If the FBI saw you as a threat, their goal, and this is a direct quote from their own documents, was to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize you.
And if you thought that was bad, let's talk about the NSA. With something called Project Minaret, they basically created a secret watch list of American citizens they didn't like. We're talking anti-war leaders, journalists, activists. Heck, even a couple of sitting U.S. senators were on this list. And what did the NSA do? They spied on them, tapped their phones, read their messages, all without a warrant. Totally illegal.
Okay, domestic spying is one thing, but I need you to brace yourself for this next part, because this is where we go from spy thriller to straight-up science fiction. This is the point where the U.S. government decided to treat the entire country, and I mean the entire country and even the planet's weather, as its own personal secret laboratory.
No, you're not misreading that. Operation Popeye, a real top-secret military program to literally weaponize the weather. During the Vietnam War, the Air Force was flying these missions where they would seed the clouds over the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The goal? Make it rain more. Extend the monsoon season, turn the trail into a muddy mess, and stop enemy supplies from getting through. They were trying to control the weather as a weapon of war.
And they didn't just experiment with the weather overseas, they experimented right here at home. This was Operation LAC. The Army secretly released these giant clouds of fluorescent particles, zinc cadmium sulfide, over huge swaths of the United States. Why? To see how a biological attack might spread. And here's the kicker. Years down the line, the EPA looked at that same chemical and classified it as a probable human carcinogen. They sprayed a potential cancer-causing agent over their own people. This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? The Army was literally using the country as an experimental laboratory. The American public had no idea they were the guinea pigs in a massive open-air chemical test.
So you hear all of this, and what's the takeaway? What's the lasting impact of all these secrets coming to light? Well, it's not just a bunch of wild historical facts. This stuff helps explain why so many people today have a deep, fundamental distrust of the government and its institutions. It's not paranoia if it really happened.
And look, when you put them all together like this, you see the bigger picture. This wasn't just a one-off thing. It wasn't a few bad apples. COINTELPRO, Minaret, Condor, Iran-Contra. This table shows a clear pattern. A pattern of secret operations with no accountability that went on for decades.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This quote is from the government's own investigation into itself. In 1977, the Department of Justice looked back at all this and called it a 35-year failure of oversight by presidents and Congress. Think about that, a 35-year failure. This was a complete systemic breakdown, all the way to the top.
So when you put it all together, manipulating foreign countries, funding secret armies, spying on American citizens, even running dangerous experiments on the public, these declassified programs show us a whole other history that was running in parallel, right beneath the surface of what we thought was reality. And that brings us to the final, and maybe most chilling, question of all. These are just the secrets we know about, the ones that got leaked, the ones that got declassified. So it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If this is the stuff that came out, what's still hidden?